Hello, and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Podcast. This is the back of the bus session. Hello, and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. Today, I'm absolutely buzzing because I've got a new mate on here who we are going to be collaborating with left, right, and centre. I already know from this one meeting, you are such a lovely human. And let's jump in with Ellie Scott.
Oh, thank you. You're going to make me blush.
You're awesome.
Oh, no, you're awesome.
I'm actually loving this encounter. I think there's a road ahead of us. Do you feel the same?
Oh, definitely, 100%.
Have you done podcasts before?
I've done one podcast where I was a guest on a podcast and I loved the experience. So when I was invited to come here, how could I say no?
What was the podcast you were doing?
So it's part of Ashgate Hospice. So it was around, as depressing as it sounds, dying matters and how mental health sort of goes into that and sort of supporting loved ones afterwards, which was really important. So it was really interesting.
Oh, wow. And when you're doing that podcast, did it have a certain format to it or was it quite conversational?
There were some questions that were sent to me beforehand. It was done during lockdown, so it was on Zoom, which was kind of difficult. But we kind of just free-flow talked, which was really nice. So
I do like that form of conversation. And did it last for quite a while?
I think we were on that call for a very long time.
Honestly, the amount of times I look down and I'm just like, where did that go?
Yeah.
What happened? Because you get people coming to do the podcast and they say, well, what am I going to talk about? How long does it usually go? About 15 minutes and that. And then they get into it, you're like, I told you.
Yeah, it's just one of them things. You go off on tangents, you talk about whatever you want, don't you?
So can we go, because I love the origin stories of people and really getting into the meat of who you are. Because I feel when I met you today, there's this authenticity that not many people possess. It's of such a nature of, here I am. I was going to say stripped down, naked, but that's fairly much it.
We've just met, but
it feels of such a genuine place. So who are you?
Who am I? Who am I? Good question.
I don't think that for the 100 and odd episodes I've done, I don't think I've gone that deep of, and who are you?
Who are you? Tell me.
Let's go in the timeline. Let's jump all the way back. What childhood was like and what was happening for you?
Yeah, well, so I was born and raised in Chesterfield. Had a really good upbringing, to be honest. I had a lovely family, really good group of friends. Our family's a really, really close family. So I've been brought up where family means everything. So we are still really close to this day, which is something that I love. And, you know, I go to my grandparents every Sunday for dinner. My granddad texts me 3 times a day to check in to see how I am, which is really lovely. I speak to my mum every day. So, you know, I had a really good upbringing. I fell in love with singing and dancing and started dancing when I was 3. Well, actually before that, because my nonna used to go dancing. She still goes dancing on a Thursday.
Wow, how old?
Oh gosh, that's a good question.
We're talking like late 60s, early 70s.
Yes.
Okay.
So she still goes to a tap and jazz class every week.
You go, girl.
I used to like rock in my bouncer, like age 18 months and younger, and she used to take me with her. So it was sort of going to be that thing where I was going to go dancing. So I started dancing when I was 3, and I danced until I was probably 16. And yeah, I sort of growing up, I knew that I always wanted to do performing arts because I loved it. Love being on stage, love singing, love dancing, love making people laugh, love making people bring out emotions that they didn't know that they had and stuff. So I went to college to do performing arts and absolutely loved it. Did 2 years there at Chesterfield College. I then went to university and started to study musical theatre. But when I was in my first year, I went on holiday to Cyprus with my family and I saw the entertainers sort of like dancing around and I was like, do you know what? I'd really love to do that job, like making people's holidays. So, you know, I said to them, I was like, oh, how did you get into it? It's something I'd really be interested in doing. And they said, actually, there's a job going at a hotel down the road. Would you be interested? So I said, yeah, I'd love to. Thinking, I bet they say that to everybody who asks because I bet they get that a lot. And then it was one night, I was up on karaoke. I had way too many pina coladas. It was an all-inclusive holiday. So, of course, I was going to be using what I had paid for. And I was singing on karaoke, and you know when you're trying to be good,
Yeah.
but you know that it's very bad. Yeah. That is the state that I was in. And I went to the bar and I was ordering another pina colada. And I was chatting to this guy for like an hour because I'm a very chatty person. I can talk. And he turned around and he was like, oh, by the way, I'm the entertainment manager for TUI. I've heard you're looking for a job. And I was like, wait, you could have opened with that. I've just been telling you like my life story. And he said, oh, well, you seem really chatty. You can clearly sing. I was like, what are you listening to? But thank you. And he said, I'll take you for an interview tomorrow. And it's like, I'm on holiday. I have no interview clothes. So I was like, I put on my best like vest top and shorts. And they took me to this hotel and I met the manager and they were like, do you sing? I said, yeah. They said, do you play instruments? I said, yeah. And they went, okay, we'll see you next Wednesday. So wow. I flew home on the Sunday, packed up everything and just dropped everything and flew back out there on the Wednesday and moved to Cyprus to live my dream as a singer and entertainer.
Oh my God. How long were you in Cyprus for?
So I was 18 at the time and that year I was there for 7 months. And then sort of like my contract came to an end. But while I was out there, I made friends with all of the local singers. Their agent came to one of my shows and he offered me a job for the following year working for him. So I flew home and then I flew back out the following year in April and stayed there until November.
I think that's what I was alluding to as you came across such a bubbly, vibrant, excitable character and that authenticity come along with it. Do you attribute that to your very early ages of dancing and being in drama?
I think so. I think that's where I got a lot of my confidence from.
I'm picking the commonality of everybody that I know that said, oh, I did drama.
You can
and
tell.
They become like my best mates. Yeah. And I don't know why it is. What do you feel to sort of psychoanalyze drama and that part of your life? What skills it gives you?
I think for me, when I was younger, I wasn't very academic. I'm dyslexic, so I wasn't
same
very good.
Sister. Yeah, Woo! High five. Got you. I got you.
So I wasn't very good at like English, but I loved the language. Like That's
a great thing to say. Yeah.
So even though I wasn't very good at it, I still enjoyed it, but I found it difficult to succeed. I tried really hard and I did work really hard, but I think being creative and not having to copy what's in a book or read lots of things where I had the freedom and creativity just to be myself, like through drama, whether it's doing like silly dance moves, whether it's improvisation, or whether it is reading a script but it's someone else's story that I connect to. I think that really helped me tap into my creativity, and I think that helped me from a young age develop to be creative and very open-minded.
I think you just said a word there that I've always had this thought about why are drama people just so interesting and sort of relaxed and real when you meet them. And the word you just said was silly. And I quite like that's a good idea of what may have been given to them at a young age is you're allowed to just be silly, be yourself, be fully free in that. And make mistakes. And then there's this fear being taken away every so often and slightly given to you because you're empowered in, oh, I can just be myself then.
Yeah, and if you're not afraid to be yourself, then, you know, it doesn't matter if somebody's laughing at you because you're already laughing at yourself.
Yeah. It diffuses that, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, you've just given me a thought for life there. Honestly, I'm carrying on that. It's the silly aspect.
Yeah.
Because being a dad now, I'm really trying to think of what are some of the most wholesome, powerful life skills I could impart and give on to Ella and opportunities I could give her. And drama's the one that always comes back round to me of, oh, that seems so important for a child.
Just let them express themselves, be creative and find who they are on their own instead of...
confidence factor.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think there's any emphasis of that in the curriculum. I don't think in the education system itself. I talk about this a lot, but it is just so boxed in.
Yeah.
And one size fits all. And if you're outside of that box, and this is so outdated and old school. But
it is.
Let's jump back into you then a bit more because this is your day today, baby.
Okay.
the Cyprus days.
Yes.
Was it action-packed? Was it really exciting, angelic, unbelievable? What was it all like? Or was there a bit of low points to it? What was,
Yeah, I mean... sort of growing up, I was very in the mindset of, I'm going to school, I'm going to university, I'm going to get a job, life sort of thing. I was very sort of, that's, you know, how growing up and how the education system works, that's what they sort of drill into your head, that this is how life is going to go. You know, you need to go to university to get a decent job, to be able to have a life, to have a career. And I wasn't a very spontaneous person. Like, believe it or not, at that time, I wasn't very spontaneous. And when I got this opportunity sort of handed to me, I was like, do you know what? I'm never going to get this opportunity again, so I'm going to take it and I'm going to do it. And I was so glad that I did it, because that first year I flew out to a completely different country. I didn't know anybody apart from that one entertainment crew at a different hotel. And I was like, all of a sudden, I'm surrounded by all of these people who I don't know, and I'm going to have to fit in somehow and learn how to make friends again. It's like being back at primary school and
reinventing yourself.
Yeah, I think that first year was definitely really eye-opening to me, and I matured a lot, because it's the first time I'd properly lived on my own. Because I mean, at uni, I don't count that as living on your own, because you've got loads of like flatmates that you live with in halls. And this time I was like, okay, so I've got to think about bills, I've got to think about meal planning properly and what I'm going to eat and stuff. And I mean, I did get to eat at the hotel, which made it a lot easier. But it was, I think, like I said, I grew up and I matured a lot being that first year out there. I mean, I was an iron apper pretty much every night for sort of like the first 6 months, because I wanted to get that experience and have that experience. But then the second year I went out there, I did go originally out with my best friend, and that was a real low point for me, because we went out together to do an ABBA show together as singers, and only a couple of days into sort of like our singing journey together, I found her after she'd taken her own life, which was, you know, what do you do? You're out in a country on your own, no family around you. How do you deal with that situation?
Sorry about that. Wow. Was she with you beforehand? The first time you went to site?
No.
So she didn't go there at all?
No.
And then you went home?
Yes.
And she was always your best friend throughout while you were away and everything?
I've known her since, I mean, our mums were best friends. We grew up together, went to the same school. When I was 7, her family moved to America, so we lost touch, but we stayed in touch via email. Social media wasn't a thing, like, sort of back then. And then when we were 13, we found each other on Instagram, and then we both learnt that we had iPads, iPhones, so we could FaceTime. Well, we used to Skype back then. We used to Skype, and we used to Skype once a week for probably about 4 hours. So we'd see each other at least sort of that time. And when I turned 18, she turned 18 before me, only 3 weeks before me, but she actually flew back to England to surprise me for my 18th birthday. And that is just one of the greatest memories that I will always have and always treasure. And she stayed in England for a year or two. After that, no, it was a year. It was a year. She stayed back in England. And then when I came back from Cyprus, I was like, I've just had this amazing opportunity. I know that you want to be a professional singer as well. Come with me. And she said, yeah, why not? Absolutely. It's a fresh start. She'd always been very open with her struggles about mental health. Up until this point, I never had any issues. I'd suffer with a little bit of social anxiety, but nothing sort of on the major scale. I didn't really have any experience of depression or suicidal thoughts or anything like that. But she was very open, so I know what she told me. So I could empathise, but I could sympathise, but I couldn't empathise. Empathise, but not sympathise. I can't remember which way around it is.
I think empathy is when you've been through it.
Yeah, so I could sympathise,
yeah.
But I couldn't empathise because I didn't understand what she was going through. So I was there for her. And it wasn't until, obviously, all of this happened that I'm like, oh my goodness. And I was next door. Our apartments were backed onto it, like we were neighbours. So I was like, could I have done this? Could I have done that? What if I'd have said this? What if I said that? And at that point, nobody could sort of talk me out of me blaming myself for what had happened.
Because it's two ways to go in this podcast. Because for me, when I was travelling and I worked in Cairns in Australia.
Oh, wow.
But it was like a party hub.
Yes.
So it sounded all glorious and pictures back home and people would be saying, oh my God, you're living the absolute dream. And yes, for a month I was. But after a while, I had to keep living that lifestyle. And that's where my lows and lows came from, because it was always trying to put on this front. And I was really unhealthy, felt in a terrible state, to be honest.
Yeah.
But again, I was constantly putting on the show and turning up for people. And I was going to sort of go into that mindset for you of where you're at.
I've just taken it deep.
No, because I was wondering if it was as glorious as it sounded and felt. Yeah. But we have reached this really dark point.
Yeah.
That I didn't
Open
know.
And honest, like
dive
I said.
straight into. Yeah, I love honesty. So let's go towards your friend, and we will try and park that thing there and maybe come back towards it, because I would love to know your psychology during all that time too. But where your friend, and you were saying you were sympathising with her, and she's always been quite open about her mental health and struggles. Do you know what attributed to everything of wanting to fresh start and get away, and what was happening? Was it bullying? Was it, what sort of factors were in her life?
I think there was a lot. It wasn't just one particular thing. You know, Georgia was openly gay. She was exploring her sexuality as well, and I don't think some of her friends or family members really agreed with that. I don't think that helped. I think she, like I said, she'd had a lot of demons that she had to battle with herself, which I don't think anything in particular sort of attributed to it. It was just sort of what was going on in her mind. I don't think she enjoyed sort of where she was living, or potentially enjoyed her job. I knew she wanted to be a singer and perform and have that experience of being on stage. She had the most phenomenal voice, and she wrote her own music as well. And I wanted to be able to give her that opportunity to have a big break. But sort of as we look back on what happened now with a lot more of a clearer head, I can see that the whole thing was planned.
Really?
That it was going to happen there.
Really?
Yeah.
Was she very clear about all her movements going up towards it?
I had no idea. Like, no idea. I think once she was offered that opportunity, that's when she started planning it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't realise that till looking back on sort of some of the notes she'd left. She left a card for my mum, because she stopped with me for a few weeks leading up to moving to Cyprus. And she left my mum a lovely card saying, like, thank you for staying with me, but when you sort of read deeper into it, she was saying goodbye. And she did it out in Cyprus because none of her family and sort of close friends were there, but she knew that I would be there, and I was one of her closest friends, and she knew that I would be able to handle it and be able to deal with it. And yes, that's a big pressure to put on my shoulders, but I always kind of see it as a blessing that she trusted me to take care of things after she'd gone.
Wow.
Deep.
That is one of the deepest stories on here. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, never apologise for it. I think this is the importance in mental health. It's something that's plagued my life. I've lost friends through it. It's plaguing so many people's lives.
Absolutely.
And trying to find the nuance on how you approach mental health.
Yeah.
Do you go full hog and go into the real gritty, dark details and find out the truths?
Yeah.
Or is it sensible to be light and kind of, sugarcoat it and take it with delicacy?
Yes.
And do you have a belief on that? Do you know what your thoughts are in treating mental health? Or
it depends on who I'm talking to, in all honesty. You know, I work with kids, and I'm never going to bring up those really deep, dark moments to them unless they want to talk to me about what they're going through, which they do. But I think it's important for people to talk about it openly and honestly on how they're feeling, because if you don't, you're not going to get the help that you need. And there's a lot of stigma. There's loads of stigma around mental health, and people don't want to talk about it, and you're shamed for talking about your mental health. Oh, I'm having a bad day. I'm feeling down. You're fine. Get on with it. You'll be fine. Grow up. That sort of thing. And that needs to go. That needs to go. If you're having a bad mental health day, you deserve to take the time for yourself and get better. It's just as important as any physical illness. They wouldn't make you come to work and carry on going if you got the flu and you were in bed poorly. So why would it make a difference if you got depression?
It's because it's invisible, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got no actual symptoms from the off.
Exactly.
And in this situation here, obviously I'm going to be delicate, but how far down the sort of healing path are you?
I'm in a pretty good space at the moment. I did hide it for a long time. Like you said, I put on a massive front. I didn't go home. I stayed in Cyprus for the rest of the season. I didn't come home until November. And I was posting pictures. Yes, I'm at a show. I'm doing this. Here I am performing tonight. When in reality, I was depressed and I didn't realise it. I was just bottling everything up because I felt that people looked at me as a really strong person, and I've always been a kind and caring person, and I love to make people happy. And that's what I wanted to continue to do. I didn't want anybody to know that I was struggling. So I did for a long time. And it wasn't probably until last year when I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, because I bottled it up that much. And it was only one tiny thing that triggered me off and led me down this massive spiral. But I got the help that I needed, and I'm in so much of a better place. And that's what's important, to let people know that if you are struggling, you do need to get help and find out where you can get support.
And did you said before on the bus, what, you discovered the body?
Yes.
Okay. And so the aftermath of that, did you go into flight mode?
Yeah.
Did you just have to sort out everything and go
Everything.
through what? Do as far as you wish to go. I don't want to
okay.
push you in any corners. Or
I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, because it's very important. I'm sure there's people that have been through this and bottled it up all their life. And I would just love to hear your sort of procedure through that, and how you dealt with it, cope with it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, at the time, as soon as I walked in, I knew what had happened. And being in a different country, I think it was really difficult to try and communicate with the police and the authorities. I was taken in for questioning. I was asked, did you kill her? Did she kill herself because she loved you and you didn't love her back? I was interrogated, and I just found my best friend. So it was very dramatic and traumatic.
How long were you interrogated for?
About an hour.
I don't often struggle and slip with my words, but this is quite hard for me to process and try and take with you. So
and here I am, like,
imagine what
smiling.
It's for you. Yeah.
But again, that's kind of like
a mechanism.
Yeah, definitely.
And you need that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really difficult.
So you're being interrogated.
Yeah, and then as soon as they let me out, when they realised that I wasn't the person who killed her or forced her to do what she did, I got out, got changed, and went to a show that evening and performed on stage.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and nobody would have known.
Was it you, or was it the authorities that had to inform back home?
It was me originally. So I phoned my mum.
Straight away from going into the room to then coming out?
The first person I phoned, I knocked on my next door neighbour's door, another singer, because sort of like all the singers, we lived in like a little complex. And I said to her, I was like, please don't come in, but I need you to call an ambulance and the police. And instead of doing that, she decided to call one of our other singers, who then came in. And then all of a sudden, all of our singery friends and agencies are all just sort of like surrounding us. And I'm like, please don't come in. I need... So I tried to ring the police, and I was in a panic. And I was like, is it 999? Is it 112? Like, I didn't know. So I called 999 and eventually got through to the people who I needed to speak to. But when I was trying to give them the address, they didn't understand me. So then I was getting very panicked and frustrated. And I was like, you need to listen to me. This is where we are. I need someone out here. And then one of my friends took the phone off me and managed to speak to them and get them to the right place. And then from there, obviously the police were there, and they said, you need to come with us, and then took me straight to the police station. So I didn't really get that much chance to process what was going on or what had just happened. So I'd spoken to my mum. Yeah, I'd spoken to my mum, and then from the police station, obviously, I was getting phone calls from all of her family. And at this point as well, they were kept asking me what happened, what's been said, what's happened. And I'm like, I can't process this right now. This is a lot for me to deal with. And because I was the only person there at that time, I'm the one who has all the answers. So I'm the only person that everybody wants to speak to, nobody else, because I'm the one that's there. So
I'm being treated as a suspect.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty clear that I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Pretty clear, but you know, it was one of them things where it's like, oh my gosh, like, you're actually looking at me as a criminal in all of this.
Pretty clear, because the mode and the method of doing it was quite an obvious happening. Okay.
Yes.
In terms of the build up then,
Yeah.
her going into Cyprus, were there no signs or no conversations had that would allude to that?
No, she was very peaceful. And that's what happened. Like, obviously now I work in mental health, and I work a lot with sort of
common theme of...
for the last sort of couple of weeks she was she was fine. She was bubbly, she was going out, she was seeing all of her friends, she was I'm not a massive drinker anymore. After that first year in Cyprus, when I was in INAPA every week, I sort of laid off the drinking, and but I was the person who I'd be staying home and waiting for her to come back in, like a worried mother. But she was going out and she was seeing all of her friends. She was speaking to her family, who she hadn't spoken to in a really long time, and she was really pleasant and happy. But at the time, I was thinking, she's just so excited for this break to go to Cyprus and explore these new opportunities. Little did I know that she was probably making peace with herself because she'd made that decision of what she was going to do.
And you, in the role that you're in now, because we'll go into the work that you do and all the phenomenal stuff, that I'm really glad that we're getting into the nice stuff over there.
Yes, definitely.
But with the knowledge you have now, the expertise and education that you've been on, is there anything in that time that you feel, if you would have had this conversation or you could have just had this moment, it would have changed things?
I think all the time to myself, what if I'd have done this? What if I'd have done that? What if I had stayed up a little bit later because we said we were gonna rehearse in the morning so we could get an early night. So what if we'd have rehearsed that night instead? Would that have changed the outcome? And I always say to myself, you can't get sort of hung up in the what ifs because it's happened, and you will never get those answers. No matter how hard we want them, we'll never get them because she's not here to tell us.
I've got Blue the Bear tattooed on my arm, and I was quite close to ending my life, and I can't always go into the full details of what happened to me. It's a long story, and it involves lots of psychedelics. It's my platform, I say what I want.
Exactly.
But I got given an opportunity, and it was from listening to the Jungle Book. And honestly, I was in the lowest state of my life, but with what I'd taken, I was more susceptible to listening to things.
Yes.
And as I'm having like basically a death experience, I remember I was like, what do I want to die to? So I put on the Jungle Book, and he said during his little breakdown, because the music started, and I thought, this is beautiful. The room looks really nice now. It wasn't as dingy and dark as before.
Yeah.
And then he said, if you're looking for something that can't be found, when you find out you can live without it, go along not thinking about it.
Yes.
And all these answers all the time. It was a breakup that I had, and it really sent me into the depths and the spiral. And hearing, stop looking for answers. You're never going to know them. Live on. Honestly, that I started goosebumps. I started dancing around the whole room, and I was so lucky that I got that moment.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to help people find that moment
for themselves.
Yeah, because you have to go through it really, and it feels to some degree it is just luck for some people at the end of the day. Because I can honestly, truthfully say I would not be here now in this seat if it wasn't for that one moment. 100% certain. I'd had the same vision, I had the same plan, I'd gained that peace, and I was like, well, I'll just try loads of other things before I go and do that thing. And I'm not advocating that, but I want people to not do the worst possible step.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can all say that a conversation can change someone's life, and it can. And I think the most important thing is those people who are going through those thoughts don't feel like they can't speak up about it as well. Or because, like I said, I wouldn't have known to ask Georgia if she was okay because she was very peaceful. I feel like she'd already got to the point where there was no turning back.
Yeah.
She'd made that decision. But if maybe I'd have had a conversation with her a few weeks before where we sat down and had an honest conversation about if she was struggling, maybe,
Yeah, I feel you.
We could have changed something.
And what about the support when you came back home with the family and her family and so on? What was the consensus in conversations?
I had a lot of support from Georgia's family, especially her dad's side of the family, they were just phenomenal. They really supported me. I mean, her dad lives over in America, so it's not like I could see him every day or like go and speak to him, but I did get a chance to see him, and his other part of the family, so his mum and his sister, they all live sort of locally. So I got a lot of support off them. My family were brilliant as well. I did get a lot of support, but at the same time, I didn't want to open up to them that I was feeling down because I wanted everybody to think that I was doing okay and managing really well.
How long did you have to carry on for until back home?
So from beginning of May until the beginning of November is when I flew home in November.
And like you said in the podcast, you were really struggling to process everything that had just gone on.
Yeah.
But you had to process it. You had to go through the steps because you had a job to maintain. You had everything that you... And the pressure on young people to, you know, finally I've got this job. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Now I've got it. Then this happens.
Yeah.
I've got to keep hold of this. So you lived it out.
Yeah.
Did you have people around you that had philosophical, wise minds about them, or were you all trying to just stay base level and keep your head above the water?
I think a little bit of both. The singers and friends that I'd made out there were really, really supportive. You know, they didn't know Georgia for that long, but they knew me from the previous year. And I'd made some really good friendships, and some of them were a lot older than what I was, and some of them were around the same age. I mean, I was the youngest singer out there, but you know, it was, I think, having their support and having them on side, and they sort of experienced it with me, if you know what I mean. Like, even though they didn't have that relationship with Georgia, Cyprus was rocked. Like, it was shaken. Like, the entertainment community was shaken by what happened.
Yeah.
And everybody was really supportive, which is what I'm really, really grateful for. And, you know, I ended up moving into my friend's house who lived in Cyprus with his mum and dad, who were also entertainers. And they didn't really ask questions. They just like, anything you need, it's yours. Take what you need, stay here as long as you want. Just do what you need to do. And I was, I think, really grateful for that, because if I didn't have that time away from that apartment complex, I think I might have been in a very different place and handled it a lot differently. But me being able to sort of escape that, focus my mind and be like, right, I've got a job to do. I need to get out and do this. It was really, really helpful.
And centered you.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, just go into who you are now and what you know now.
Yeah.
Did any people exhibit sort of do nots and do's in helping somebody go through this situation?
Yes and no. I think definitely the do nots are ask too many questions, because that then puts a lot of pressure on people to give them answers that they're not ready to talk about. And I think that's really important, not to pressure people, because if they're not ready, they're not ready. You can't force people to talk to someone, but you need to make sure you sort of build that trust to know that when you are ready, they are there. And I think I definitely had that. Even though I'm a very stubborn person, so I think that's why I struggled for so long, because I refused to let other people see me struggle. And I continued to put on this massive front. I'm fine, I'm doing great, look at this, I'm doing all of these things in her memory, I've moved on, I'm fine, when really I hadn't actually processed it myself, because I was too busy supporting everybody else and making sure everyone else was okay before thinking about myself. And when I had a lot of people asking me questions, how did she do it, where did you find her, what happened, are you okay, are you okay, are you okay, and that constant questioning, I just wish somebody would have said to me, like, it's okay, you're gonna be okay. That sort of thing is a lot more reassuring than lots of direct questions. So if anybody's ever going through that, I would definitely sort of avoid that.
Yeah.
But the do's,
and like fixing it for you.
Yeah, it's not fixable. People grieve in so many different ways, and that was definitely a big learning curve for me. That was the first like big death experience I had. Like, I'm really lucky to still have my grandparents, and I've never really experienced any other sort of close family deaths or friends death. That was like the real big one for me, like the first one that hit really hard. And I think the fact that I had support there from my family, going back to when we started, like me growing up, I've got such a close-knit family. and they're not overbearing as well. And I think that's really important. You need to make sure you give people space and the time to grieve, and realise that people grieve in different ways, but be there for when they need you.
I suppose giving them the option, like really letting them know, do you need me to just listen now and
definitely
be an ear, or do you need my advice in this moment?
Absolutely.
Are you struggling to find peace with this, and can I give you a few ideas of what may help you find that?
Absolutely. I feel like this is a therapy session right now. So
we're doing
more
it together.
More people should do this.
They'll be on it. I swear to God, you're starting a podcast. I'm making it happen.
Oh God,
it's ace. But I truly believe there are some ways that you can help propel people through their mental health battles.
Yeah, definitely.
And really sort of hinder their opportunity of growth in that. But it's really just listening to what that person needs in that time and trusting them in their process.
Recovery happens at so many different paces, and you can't say, for example, if one person gets over a death in 3 weeks, you can't expect another person to get over that in that same amount of time, because their healing process is completely different. We're all human, we're all wired so differently, and how one person deals with something isn't going to help another person. And it's what I say about mental health. It's not one size fits all, and not one service is going to work for everyone. Not one medication is going to work for everyone. That's why we have so many different options.
And it truly is a journey. And even for that person, they may change in their parameters of how they process things later down the line. That one thing they got over eventually, they may feel, oh, I used this mechanism before, I used this strategy, and it worked, and then try and deploy it again, and it doesn't. And you've got to just give time for that person to always be a part of that journey. And, for me, I've had some struggles recently, and it's funny because as somebody that talks so much about it, has put on events like yourself that we're going to get into, I work for another podcaster, and all mental health is just so in my life. We're running a men's circle tonight. But at some point you feel, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest trickster of all, isn't it?
Yes.
Because then you can put this pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
And then inevitably when life happens to you and things don't go your way and the dark seeps in, you're like, oh no, I can't be mended. And then you can end up worse than you were before.
Absolutely.
In some way. So it's just respecting it. It's always a journey. It's always going to be changing. And some days are better than the next. But it's like a wave. You've got to, instead of crash and go down into the ocean, it's like riding it out and understand it comes down, and not every day feels esoteric and beautiful. But try and enjoy the down. Yeah. Because that gives to the up.
Exactly. Like you said, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It is part of a journey. And everybody has mental health. Everybody has it. It's whether it's positive or whether it's negative.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to be worse. Sometimes you can have good days. And it's all about managing that and finding ways to cope and finding ways to help you in those down moments.
Why do you think it is so misunderstood? Because for physical health, people kind of understand the concept.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, if I eat X amount and I don't exercise X amount, then poor things are going to happen to my health and my physique and how I look. It's a simple equation, and we may be educated that quite ferociously at times.
Yeah.
With mental health, when people dip and go through certain experiences and weren't ready for it or equipped, they're just like, that's it, what am I doing? Oh my God. And it just all tumbles for them. What do you attribute that to? Why are we so under-equipped?
I think, again, what you mentioned earlier, it's invisible. You can't see those changes. You can feel those changes yourself. Whereas, if you do start eating unhealthy and don't do exercise, you're going to see physical changes that other people can notice as well. It's like if you break your leg, physically you can see somebody's in a cast so they know that they're injured. Whereas mental health, you could be putting on a smile, but inside you could be having the deepest, darkest thoughts that nobody would think was possible. And it's very misunderstood. There's not a lot of research. And I think a lot of people just think medication and therapy, that's your only options for when it comes to mental health. And it's taken a very sort of regimented approach. I think statutory services have a lot a big part to play in that. There's not a lot of research, and I think I'm not shaming the NHS at all. They're wonderful. They do wonderful things. But I know how much pressure they're under, and I think people don't actually realise that to look after their mental health and to stop them even maybe from slipping that far where they do need intervention, that there is so much community-wise that you can do. And I know it sounds so silly, but I have such a mantra about self-care being so important, because if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anyone else. And I think I've learnt that along my mental health journey, because I was putting everybody else first, but I was crumbling, and it got to a point where I couldn't even like go out of the house and speak to people because I was that broken. And if I'd have taken that time and actually been in touch with myself and been like, hey, you're struggling, Ellie, you need to pick yourself up and you need to do something for you and look after you, because I wouldn't be able to deal with those situations that other people are trying to tell me. And then I'm not my best for them. And that's my job, to be there for them. And I can't be my best because I'm not looking after myself. That makes sense?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, I love the NHS too.
Yes.
But I had an experience once of going into somebody to find help, and their advice really sent me back a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it was, just get a hobby or get out and go do things.
It's not that easy.
I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I literally despise the thought of leaving my door today.
Yeah.
And you want me to go out and just join a boxing club. And it really it irritated me so much that I didn't go and get help for a long time after that. And it only took somebody who I paid for and privatised stuff, who just said, and really went into the psyche of it. And I was like, I can't get out of bed. He says, well, why are you trying to get out of bed? Who are you doing that for? I was like, well, you've got to get out of bed. And then he was like, just stay in bed if you want to stay in bed. And then suddenly I was letting my body do what it wanted to do.
What it needed.
And needed.
Not what it wanted, what it needed.
And then I was allowing myself to be in that position. And because I was really going inside and reflecting on, well, do I want to be in bed all day? Do I need to be in bed all day? And suddenly it was going, I actually want to get up.
Yeah.
And I was basing it all on what I thought other people thought of me. So they saw me as this vibrant, excited, always going out, achieving, doing things with my life person.
Yeah.
And another side of me, I just want to relax. I want to be in my pants. I want to play Xbox or do my thing. But there's so many sides to me. And I'd created a character of what everyone else thought I was, or what I thought everyone thought I was.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Definitely.
So suddenly when I started tuning back into, well, do you know what? I'm going to get up now. I'm going to go shower. And then back in, I thought, I'm just going to get back to bed. But then something inside of me that I could tune into, because I was outside of mind then, it was like, actually, I'm a bit hungry. And I was really listening to myself.
Yes.
And not this stream of thoughts of what I thought everyone thought I should do.
Yeah.
But that took some pain for somebody
to tell you that.
To give me all this wonderful, deep-rooted, gut inherent knowledge that's from our ancient ancestries. It's all there.
Yeah.
But we seem to be turned away from it. We seem to be numb and pushed through it. And I don't think it's a conspiratorial thing or anything.
No.
But it does seem...
It's drilled into our heads.
It seems hidden.
Yeah, it is inside of us, inside all of us. And we have to learn how to listen to ourselves and our bodies and realise what we need. Because like you said, what were you getting out of bed for? You didn't need to. You've got to allow your body to have that time to heal and process what you actually need. Not let anybody else tell you what you need to do.
Why do you think we've lost that animalistic side of our nature, though, of listening to ourselves and what we really need?
I think culture and society.
Yeah.
Definitely. You know, there's a lot of pressure on us as people to be out and achieving things that we need to do. Like, you need to do this in your job, or whether it's pressure from your boss, whether it's pressure from your family, whether it's pressure from the government, whether it's, you know, sort of society as a whole.
Pressure.
Yeah, it's
stress,
like one
stress,
big
stress.
pressure cooker that we are expected as humans to get up every day and do these things to make our life worth living. But at the same time, like, by putting that much pressure on yourselves, are you actually listening to what you need? and taking time for yourselves. And I've always had that saying that it's okay to have those down days just as long as they don't last forever. And I think that's really important, because what you learned from that, you had that time to yourself, and you probably thought when you went back into bed, I'm never going to get out of bed again. This is going to be, I'm going to be staying here. I don't want to do this. I can't see any future for myself. Like, I just want to stay here forever. And then by listening to yourself, you realise, actually, I do want to get up, and I'm going to do that for me because I want to, for myself, not because anyone else wants me to. And
it's them lovely words of, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That okay feeling of, you're enough. You can do whatever you wish to do.
Yeah.
It's all you that gets to decide the next manoeuvres, and that's quite empowering then.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas a lot of the time we're basing it on what would they want.
Yeah.
So the second you turn into that, I'm enough to do this.
Yeah.
It starts to give space to, okay, Mr. I'm enough. What do you want to go and do with yourself then?
Exactly. And I think that's so important. A lot of people might think it's silly to sort of like say things to yourself like in the morning when you get up, like, I'm enough, I'm here, I'm grounded. And I think even just like having that phrase that you can say to yourself that you will remind you why you are doing what you are doing is really important. And people might not believe in it or whatever. I know a lot of people can be skeptical, but try it.
Yeah.
Try it.
That's what I always feel to the laws of attraction.
Yes.
For people that go, yeah, but that's just woo-woo. It's all fluffy woo-woo nonsense. And I'm like, okay, that's a perception and an idea towards it. But what is the harm of trying that?
Exactly.
Like thinking good, creating a good future for yourself, imagining a dreamlike future, and trying to live that out. What harm is that going to do by following a woo-woo handbook?
Exactly.
And then, the byproduct of living in a good nature, a good energy, suddenly great things come the way. It might not be the exact thing you wanted, but good things definitely come.
Absolutely. And, if it doesn't work out, hey, you tried.
Yeah.
You had a go, and you tried something new that you didn't know that you'd be able to do.
Yeah, because what's the opposite of trying that?
Exactly.
It doesn't sound like a great option.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's go into you then, and the aftermath.
Okay.
Oh God, how did that sound?
Well, we're all friends here, but
Let's the aftermath. How soon did you start up the charity, and what's the charity called? I'll put it in the description.
Oh, thank you. A little bit of a plug there. So after I got back from Cyprus in November, I knew that I wanted to do something for George's 21st birthday, which was the following March. So I organised a big birthday party for her in her memory, because it was the first birthday that we would have had without her. And I know that a lot of people would have been struggling. Again, I was putting on a front because I was really struggling at this point. But I, again, thinking of everyone else, was like, I need to be there for everyone else. What would everyone else want? So we did a big birthday party. We had loads of different performers come in. We had raffles. Everyone was getting drunk. It was a good time. And we raised money, and we sold tickets, and it went to 2 charities that meant a lot to us. And then sort of following on from that, I was like, what actually is out there for young people who are struggling? Because at this point I was tuning into myself and thinking I'm not doing so well here. Maybe I need some support.
How old were you here? 19.
I'd turned 20 while I was in Cyprus.
Yeah.
So George's 21st, so I was 20.
Okay.
So I would have been turning 21 3 weeks after.
Right.
Very confusing. So, as still a young person, what I've not got a lot of options other than taking this medication that the doctors are saying that I need to take, or go to talking therapy, which I'm not ready to do yet. I don't think I'm in that position. I didn't think I needed to talk.
There's no in between. It was just A or B.
Yeah, and I sort of had a look into groups, but they were aimed at older people. It's like, I don't want to be sit with a load of grandmas talking about my dead friend. I'm just not ready for that. And I lost my passion for music while I was depressed, while I was going through this. When I was in Cyprus and I was singing, I wasn't enjoying it. I was doing these shows and it was a job, and it turned into a job for me. And that's where I really had to take a step back and look at myself and thinking, you love to sing. you love performing and you love music. Like, where has that gone? And it almost felt as if like Georgia died and took that with her to the grave, because we were musicians together in a world without Georgia. It's not worth me doing music anymore. When really I was my own artist. We did stuff together, but I had my own voice and I did my own stuff. And I was like, I need to tap into that. So I picked up my guitar and I wrote a song. And I was like, wow, I enjoyed this. It might not have been any good, but like for me, it's like, I really enjoyed this. And I wanted other people to feel that good when they sing too and be proud of what they're doing. And nothing makes you feel better than singing as a group. Like I went back to my old days of like when I was at college and we did like big productions of all of when we all sang together and it just made such a beautiful sound. Whether we could sing or not, we were having fun. So I wanted to do that for young people. And in September 2019, I said, I'm going to start the George Bird Foundation. And I want to run choirs for young people who are struggling free of charge to come and have a safe space and just have some fun and be in a space where everybody mutually understands what you're going through.
The Georgia Bird Foundation?
Yes, so the Georgia Bird Foundation. So named after her. And a lot of people email me and say, hi, Georgia. And I'm like, why would I name a charity after myself? Yeah. Like, come on. Like, no. No, so it's named after Georgia to keep her legacy alive, because without the events that happened, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today. I wouldn't have taken this massive career turn. And as awful as this event has been, it's really shaped me into the person I am today and made me so passionate about mental health, specifically young people's mental health, and why I want to, like we said, change the world. And it's not going to happen overnight, but by speaking about it and starting doing small things that we can do within our community to help people and young people, I think that will help. And I don't know if that answered your question. I go off on tangents.
Please, that's
so
the
I'm
point
so
of a
sorry.
Podcast, yeah. Q&As are very succinct. I want conversational, long format, flowing conversation, but
Yes.
that did. So with the group that you've got,
Yes.
you set up this charity.
Yes.
And then what's your actual job role as well? You've got a secondary job.
Yeah, so after I came back from Cyprus, I didn't have a job. I went back working at Nando's for a bit, serving chicken and chips.
Oi, oi.
Yes.
Savaloy.
And then I got a job working on the phones at 111. And I dealt with a lot of the mental health calls. You don't get a choice with who you get to speak to. But somehow I always ended up with mental health calls. And sort of because I had that experience with Georgia, I always made sure I took my time with them, and I really wanted to speak to these people and help people. And
Strongly
I was like,
resonated with you.
yeah. And I said, I want to work with these people. Like, I don't want to just be on the phone to them. Like, I want to be working with these people. So Had
you ever watched anybody else around your vicinity dealing with them that were quite flippant and not dealing, maybe very strategic with them?
We had a pathway that we had to do when we were dealing with mental health calls. So we had, we had targets to hit.
You weren't supposed to deviate.
Yeah. Our calls were supposed to be like 7 minutes long, and that's it. If you've got someone who's saying that they're thinking about taking their own life, you don't want to put that phone down on them. And I didn't care if that made my numbers go up. Like, I wanted to find a job where I could work with these people. So I started working at the Derbyshire Recovery and Peer Support Service. I'd never worked in mental health before, but I had a lot of passion and a desire to change. And I think hopefully that came through on my interview. Well, it did, because I got the job. And I started working with mental health support groups sort of around the county, around Derbyshire, which was absolutely wonderful. And then now I've taken a job. I'm based down south at Elrosh Voluntary Action, but I cover all of Derbyshire and Derby City, and I am, are you ready for the title? Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Development Worker for Derbyshire and Derby City.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, mouthful.
That's a good title. I wouldn't want to see it on a badge.
Yeah, it's pretty long. I had to get an extender.
Yeah, you've got to turn to the back to see the rest of it.
Yeah.
That absolutely fantastic. So you work your way up that role.
Yeah, and I really love the role. I get to go out and meet loads of sort of grassroots community groups. I work with a lot of football clubs. I work with sports groups, local gyms, and help and support them to do mental health training. So for clubs and for people who actually haven't really thought of that before because they might not have experienced it, it's like, well, actually, it's really good to have some training behind you so that the people who come to your groups, to your clubs, have that opportunity and know that there is somebody that they can talk to within your organisation.
Absolutely phenomenal what you do.
Thank
and you're
you.
25.
Yes.
Gonna hang my hat up now, just go and walk off into the distance in the meadows.
it.
No, absolutely incredible work.
Thank
So
you.
inspiring.
Thank you.
So with the charity that you do, it's very harmonious, no pun intended. But
Yes.
working in what the position you're in and your charity.
Yes.
Do you want to expand that as well as the singing element and stuff like that?
Yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
there's so many job roles and passions and skills that come inside of that for the music industry. You wanting to expand it, and can you talk about that, or is it like under wraps?
No, it's not under wraps at all. Like, we've got nothing set in stone. I can talk about all day of what I want to do, whether it will become a reality, who knows. But like, my goal is to work full time for my charity eventually, and be able to sort of shape the way mental health is sort of treated for young people. I go to a lot of meetings, I speak to a lot of people, and I'm not afraid to say, this is wrong. People are being left here. I work with these young people who tell me their stories, and I'm like, well, let's try this. And they're like, I've tried that, I've been turned away. What about this? I've tried that, I've been turned away. Like, they're trying to help themselves. We're living in a world at the moment where people are actually trying to help themselves, and they don't have any other options. Like, they're being turned away from everything, and their only option is to go private. Like, you had to go private.
Yeah.
And a lot of my kids, they're not my kids, but I feel like they're my
yours.
kids.
Yeah.
We're like a family.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are having to turn to private therapy. Luckily enough, I have a really good relationship with a therapist who is able to help and offer us services at either a very discounted rate or for free. But some people who have sort of specific diagnoses who need a lot more intensive support, we have to sort of outsource these therapists, and they're not cheap. And these are young people who might not want to tell their family what's going on and ask them for money, which is why we do choirs for free. Or they are in care, they've come out of foster care, and they're now living on their own with not a lot of family support, and they're on benefits. How are they supposed to afford £45 a session for therapy that they need every single week for the next few months? It's a lot to ask for. So I would love to be able to offer that for anybody who needs it, and have that sort of backup funding, which is something that we're going to be talking about. I'm in talks with to see if we can make that happen. But also, I just want to be able to have a space for young people, a hub. I want to call it the Bird Box. I think that's a really nice name. And specifically to get young people's creativity flowing and have an outlet. Because at choir at the minute, like, we write songs, like, with the kids, and it doesn't even have to be a happy song. Like, they're writing down a song of their feelings in that moment or what they're going through, and that's getting those feelings out on paper instead of keeping it bottled up in their head.
Yeah.
And for them, that's a release, and it's
Cathartic
a really good
tool.
release. Yeah. And to be able to do that for other people and have that experience and opportunity for other people to do that would be really good. And to, like I said, just have a space where it doesn't have to be all about singing and music. It could be about creative writing, it could be about other things, but a chance for them to have this outlet in a safe space that's supported, and hopefully staffed with clinical staff on board to help if things are, like, people are struggling and need to talk to someone. Like, I'm not a therapist. I wish I was, because then I would like to speak to as many people as possible, but I'm not. And I want people to know I can only give people so much support before I realise, like, this is past my boundary. I can't help you anymore. I can still speak to you and support you, but you need more help. Yeah. And it's, I think,
of a professional nature, somebody that's been on enough courses.
Yeah, and gone through, paid all of those fees to get that degree. There's just me here with not even a musical theatre degree because I went to Cyprus instead. So, I think as professionals as well, we have to realise what our boundaries are and when to say no. And again, it's about looking after ourselves. Because, I'm still a person with trauma. I still have a lot of trauma, and I'm not afraid to say that sometimes I do have bad days and I do struggle. And again, if I am struggling and somebody comes to me and says I need help, I'll be like, look, I'm not in a place at the moment myself to be able to offer you the support that you need. Here's an alternative. Yeah. Here's someone else you can speak to. And that's not me passing them off or saying, I don't want to speak to you. That's me taking care of myself so I know that I can be the best person that I can for all of these young people struggling.
what's your experience in the field that you're in of going for the funding pots and the conversations you're having? Is there enough there? I mean, the demand's there. It's crazy. I mean, you were going to be a part of this mental health festival we were throwing.
Yes.
And we've had so many festivals on this farm.
Yeah.
And maybe, I attribute it to so many different, a magnitude of reasons it didn't come together, this festival. But the ones where I was in the music scene, we had 500 or 600 people coming down, and it was never tricky to sell tickets or bring people down because they could comprehend alcohol, substances, and partying.
Yeah.
And, I'm also going to say, maybe because I'm not in the music scene anymore, I'm outside of all scenes, and I'm a dad, that could have been a factor. But it does feel like the stigma around mental health has put people coming off into this environment because they don't know what to expect.
Absolutely.
And I wonder, with the conversations you're having with groups and professionals and the funding pots, what are they like? What is the demand there? And
I think, people think mental health is a scary word. And I've run events, and I secured funding to run a big festival in October last year called Think Fest, and it was around mental health.
Beautiful.
And it was the first one that I'd ever done, and it was a free event because I'd managed to get funding for it. I was of that luxury where I didn't have to charge people for tickets. And because I spoke about it so openly, yes, we're going to have loads of mental health services here, come and find out how you can access support. We had probably just over 600 people register for tickets. On the day, just shy of 200 standing.
Really?
It was quite a quiet day. And I'm like,
that's why somewhat you want
Yeah.
tickets there, so you can really, cause when people are paid for something, they're quite likely to jump in. But
yeah,
then you
because
want
they
it
paid
free.
for it. Yeah, it's really difficult to try and find that middle ground.
Yeah.
But what I've learned from that is that stigma for you. People do not want to be seen walking into a mental health event.
Yeah.
Because they're scared of what other people are going to think. Again, society pressures. Whereas it shouldn't matter. It really shouldn't. So that just shows, that proved to me, that event, how much work we've still got to do. So I took that, and then I did another one this year. I did it in May, and I changed the sort of, not wording, I changed the structure, an approach. So instead of doing it indoors, in a building, in a venue, I did it outdoors in the town centre.
Nice.
So, and I did it on a Saturday when it's busy.
Yeah.
And my main approach was focusing on the performers and not the mental health side of things. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't have to be that way. But by having a massive stage in Chesterfield Town Centre with all of these fantastic performers on stage that can be heard down the other side of Chesterfield, is going to get people thinking, oh my gosh, what's that? Let's go and have a look at what's going on.
Sort of diffuses it for people.
Yeah, and then all of these services are here offering support, and you don't even have to have a deep conversation. It could just be, oh, I'll think of that. I'd never thought that could help my mental health. We didn't just have talking therapies and mental health specific services. We had like craft groups there. We had walking football. We had physical activity groups. We had crafting groups. All of these things that have a positive impact on your mental health, that if you are a person who doesn't necessarily have a lot of hobbies or does a lot of social activities, that by just making that one change and actually going to a group and making new friends and speaking to people, it might stop you from dipping so low that you need intervention.
Yeah.
Sort of like stopping it before it starts.
Was that one of your very proud moments, watching that festival unfold? It
was a lot of work went into it.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy with how it went. And, I think that, I'm not an event organiser, but I've organised these events. And I think that doing it this time, it's like, right, how can I improve it next year? How can I get more people involved? How can I make this bigger? How can I make this better? This year I did it on zero funding. Nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't have any sort of extra support. It came from my pocket. But it didn't cost me that much money.
Yeah.
And I think that compared to last year of how extravagant we went when we really didn't need to, this year we did it on zero budget and it was more successful. And I think it is a massive learning curve on how we do these things. But like I said, again, it's still showing that we have a lot of stigma and that needs to be broken down. And, you know, your festival idea is absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait to support it as much as I can, because it's definitely needed. And
I think we're just going to get together, have some proper conversations, me and my partner.
Yes.
And we just need to grow the hub into a stronger sort of entity again, because I think what I was doing before was massive glorified parties.
Yeah.
And people really enjoy being a part of that, but not being a part of that, if that makes sense.
Yes, they were just sort of there.
Come in and seeing it all, getting involved with the antics.
Yeah.
But then for something like that to grow legs and be a strong force, you have to have a genuine, strong team behind it.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I made a promise to Chrissy when we had Ella that I'm not going to put, because out of my pocket, I was talking like thousands of pounds I'd be putting into it.
It's a
bands
lot of money,
and artists or whatever it could, toilets. You don't think of all the small logistical
little
things. But that's what it would happen to amount to. So I said, I'm never going to put us in that detriment again.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure when we do a festival, it's going to at least just break even.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make money for Mend. I just wanted to bring great people together.
Yeah, and have those conversations.
I can't be in a huge surplus.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, that's a mistake that I made that first year. Even though I had funding, I still put a lot of money into it. And for what? We didn't have a lot of people there, which was fine. But I learned from that. And this year, you know, I'm not bankrupt, so I guess I'm doing something right.
I'll do. Don't think we've sworn on this podcast, but I say one swear word because some people have "fuck you" money.
Yeah, yeah,
and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
In order for us to keep doing what we're doing and getting the funding pots in and working with the kids, and we do a thing with 0 to 4s here.
Wonderful.
And it started to pay off, and we're looking at our accounts and going, oh my God.
We're growing.
There's some money here. We're an actual business.
Yes.
And when you have that catered for, that's when you can start putting on events that really mean something to you.
Absolutely.
And have that potential of just breaking even for the day, because you're like, I just care about this. I want it.
Yeah.
But until then, you kind of need to have a strong foundation, don't you,
Absolutely, 100%. And I think as well, these kinds of events, they're not about the money. If we can break even, that's fantastic. It's about the conversations and the lives that we're going to change, hopefully, by people attending.
It was always after the festivals, just such a massive high.
Yeah.
But then this drop down afterwards, and it was sort of, you'd have a hangover, you'd feel whatever next, but then you'd be having conversations of, oh, I heard he got this money and he got this and he got, I'm like, oh, just have money, just whatever. Whereas something like this, I knew for having breath workers and yoga instructors and people that do public speaking and so on, the aftermath was just going to be this glow of, oh, and that moment that I shared and this moment. So it will happen. We just need to be on a much better foundation and not sand.
100%. You need to make sure that you feel stable enough, like as an organisation, to be able to deliver something, because what happens if you do this amazing event and then you're not able to do anything after that because you've got no money to put into your organisation to make things happen and do what you actually normally deliver, which is the most important part.
And I'm quite a vulnerable, sensitive soul and malleable. And when I was doing it on my own, sometimes with me, if I don't have a strong backing and team with me, and not that it's Chris's fault at all, but she never wanted to put on a festival. So I got to take that. But because I didn't have anyone there, when there was certain little elements, I'd get, say, an artist on, and then there was this sort of people going, oh, they shouldn't be on because of X, Y, and Z. And then it'd affect my mental health, ironically, because I was going, oh, I'm just trying to do a nice thing. And
exactly.
Now I'm playing he said, she said stuff. And it started to go down a really ugly side of the nature of it. That started to put me off a little bit when I was doing it. So then I didn't give it the attention and energy that it required to put it on, if that makes sense too.
Oh, absolutely.
So you kind of need a friendship and a team, and
team.
All man in the deck going, oh, I'll take this now, or I can
delegation.
Do this. Yes,
and that's something that I'm really bad with.
High five again, sister.
I'm one of those people. It's like, I'm doing an event, I want to do everything myself because I know how I want it and I have this vision. And it's quite funny. I was talking about this on Sunday with one of my best friends because we're doing an event in London in January next year. And we're having these conversations now with him and then 2 other people. And it's like, oh my gosh, like we're an actual team and you're going to be doing this and I'm going to be doing this and it's not all on my shoulders. And I've never had that experience before. And I'm like, wow, maybe I should consider doing this in the future because it's actually helpful. And I always remember on the day of ThinkFest this year in May, as I was setting up and there was a lot of stress, I had things like my host cancelled on me at 7 o'clock in that morning. Some of my stall holders, like there was an issue there, and I was setting up and I was like, I'm never doing an event again. I'm never doing it again. This is horrible. This is so stressful. And then at the end, you're like, oh my gosh, I've just done that. Like I've done that. But you do need a good team behind you, definitely.
Just did you, with your good team, did you have people reminding you and that aftermath of, oh, look what we're doing.
Yeah.
Look how great this is.
I think it was just sort of word of mouth as well for me and how far it actually reached. Like even people who weren't there. So obviously it had a lot of mental health services there and a lot of people sort of from like CCGs, commissioners. I had people from public health there. And then I'm sort of being passed on all these emails like, look at this comment, what so-and-so said about ThinkFest.
Oh.
Look at what so-and-so said about ThinkFest. And I'm like, oh, wow, like it impacted people and people enjoyed it because I didn't enjoy it on the day. I was so stressed. I didn't.
Dude, I've been there. Trust me.
I don't enjoy the days, but then I look back and I'm like, but people enjoyed it, and that's the main reason.
Yeah, that's a great philosophy. You've been a server.
Yes.
There, I've had them moments and little music stuff we put on, and I want it to be deadly silent because we're filming it and it's for the artists and stuff, and they can send that in to get bookings.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, this is great, and I feel so accomplished from it. But then when there's chatting and stuff like that,
you're like, shh.
That you're in like sort of control of all of it, and that can be a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But I love what you said there. It is because ultimately you want it to be good for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, it's worth the pressure and the stress. But I think like going forward, I will have like a good, stronger team behind me and learn to delegate. I think that's really important for people to remember that, again, we're only human and there's only
doing
so
our
much.
Best.
Exactly. And, you know, I work a full-time job and I run a charity and I was organising this event. Like, when do I get to breathe?
Yeah.
Like, when do I get to, again, take time for myself so I'm the best person that I can be?
It's funny that we've both had that exact experience.
Yeah.
Seem like quite similar people.
I think so too.
Like, when you were talking it through, I just started smiling all the way. Like, yeah, I know exactly you.
It's like looking in a mirror.
Oh, bless you. Well, I'm going to let us get on with the day because we're more than an hour, nearly an hour and a half in.
Wow.
That's good talking.
We can talk.
That's a good, strong conversation. But for a lot of people, sometimes they last really long.
Yeah.
Because I know, this is an amazing conversation, but I probably won't get a chance to talk to them again.
Yeah.
But with you, I think I'd really like to keep dipping in and
definitely.
talk. Maybe we pick a topic or
fantastic.
Think about how we can keep reintroducing it, or you've got some cool friends and
definitely.
I feel you're one of those dip in and out podcasters where I can get you back as a co-hosting guest.
I'm not a podcaster though. Like I just talk and I find it fun.
You open to looking at the podcast journey?
Potentially.
You'd be really good at it.
I enjoy it. I mean, it's been fun being sat here.
Have you enjoyed it?
I've really enjoyed it.
On the back of the bus, baby.
I know. It's been a lot of fun.
Because we've got you were saying you were quite involved in LGBT as well.
Yes.
That's a whole conversation of
Definitely.
its own, isn't it?
We love talking around queer mental health. It's brilliant.
Any other avenues that I've not known from you? Are you a secret anything?
Oh gosh, I don't know. A secret? No. I think that's everything for me. I'm a pretty open book though as well, and I think
open to explore and discover.
Definitely. Always love a conversation about, I love learning new things as well and opening my eyes to sort of topics of conversation that I might not be necessarily involved in, but maybe should be involved in.
Yeah. I suppose, similar to me, like taboo topics and conversations that seem too imbalanced for me. I want to be not the heart of it or not the big voice of it, but just be able to be a member of the society, have an ear to it and say, well, let me really weigh that up because I don't want to utter what they're saying and I don't want to just be my old self of just say the opposite of it either.
Yeah.
Because that's not wise. It's genuinely listening and going, I really don't know what I think here. It seems such a grey area.
Yeah.
And I want to really listen to both sides and weigh up a thing. And that's why I love podcasts, because you can't in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, a status, truly express yourself, truly find out the argument and what you want to say. But being a listener, having them open source conversations, that's where the truth really lies.
So important.
Yeah.
So important.
Do a podcast.
Okay. Pulling my arm.
Yeah. Let everybody know where they can find you if they want to talk to you. I'm sure they've been inspired. And the charity. So I'll put all that in the links.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you. So you can find us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and it's at George Bird Foundation. Actually, on Twitter, it's GB Foundation. And then our email address is georgiabirdfoundation@gmail.com. And our website is, if you just type in George Bird Foundation on Google, we're the first one that comes up. So yeah, you know, if any kind of conversations, or if you're struggling, or if you want more information or want to work with us, I'm always open for any kind of discussion.
Or just shout at you to start a podcast. Do it.
That will literally be my inbox for the next few days.
Mate, I've really enjoyed this.
It's been wonderful, thank you.
I really appreciate it. I'll do my bit. Guys, you've been a part of the Old Farm Bus, Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. I'm going to leave you on this. I always do, and I always will. Just be nice to one another, you beautiful set of buggers. Have a good day.